Hello everyone, welcome to History and Culture. In ancient China, marriage was not simply about taking a wife. Especially for wealthy or high-status families. Marrying a wife involved not just welcoming a beautiful spouse but also bringing along a group of maidservants. The roles and identities of these maidservants were diverse, often bewildering. Apart from ordinary maids, there were also special types of maids, such as the tóng fáng yatou, chambermaids, and Pajamas dowry maids. For modern people, these ancient marriage customs might seem complicated and difficult to understand. After all, it's already enough to marry a wife. So why is there a need to bring along a group of maids? Moreover, with so many people living together, the family expenses would be quite substantial. How could they afford to support them? However, the existence of these maids was not as simple as it might seem. In particular, the tóng fáng yatou held a more special and important role compared to ordinary maids. They were not just part of the household but often bore significant responsibilities, and in some families, their role could have a profound impact on the family's stability. So, what exactly did a tóng fáng yatou do? How did their special status and function influence the family structure and marital life? According to historians, in ancient China, maids were a unique existence. Although they were living people, they were often treated like property, bought and sold. Records show that maids were usually young girls, raised with the expectation of marrying into wealthy families and becoming part of the household. Their primary responsibility was to help the matron of the house with household chores, ensuring that the mistress of the house could live a more comfortable and leisurely life. Therefore, maids became an integral part of affluent households from the outset, assisting with the smooth functioning of the family. There were many types of maids. Young maids were often called yatou, young maids, while older, more experienced ones were referred to as lao mama, nannies, or wawa, elderly maids. Regardless of their age, most of these maids' destinies were tied to their masters. From the moment they entered the family, their youth and lives were practically owned by their masters. They had no authority to determine their own fates, and often suffered abuse or were traded, with low social status and a life full of hardship and helplessness. However, among these maids, there was a type known as tóng fáng yatou, whose status was different from that of ordinary maids and even had significant particularities. Tóng fáng yatou were typically given as part of the dowry when a woman married, accompanying the bride to her husband's family. At first glance, their status seemed low, with no autonomy. However, in reality, the chambermaids held a higher position among the maids. The rooms of these chambermaids were usually connected to the mistress's room, meaning they could always be close to the mistress, especially at night when they needed to be on standby, ready to respond to the needs of the husband and wife. Historical records show that during the wedding night, chambermaids were often required to be present, wearing nightclothes, to serve the couple. This might be hard for many modern people to imagine or accept. Some curious people might wonder, what exactly did these tóng fáng yatou do? One of the main roles of a tóng fáng yatou was to help the husband and wife manage their nighttime life. In ancient society, matters related to intimacy between men and women were often considered sensitive and taboo, especially for respectable men, who might not be knowledgeable about the ways of married life. Women, on the other hand, were constrained by the 3 bonds and 5 relationships and often lacked knowledge about matters of intimacy. In such a context, the chambermaid played a crucial role. Not only did she care for the male master in daily life, but she also served as a guide and coordinator in the couple's intimate relations, helping to improve their relationship and sexual life. Secondly, the role of a tóng fáng yatou also lies in alleviating family conflicts. In ancient society, which was predominantly patriarchal, men were often allowed to have multiple women, while women could only have one husband. After many years of marriage, the relationship between the female head of the household and her husband might have grown cold. And the husband might seek women outside, often visiting brothels or courtesans. At such times, the role of the tóng fáng yatou became particularly important, because they were often trusted confidants of the wife. Their relationship was close, and they could even soothe the husband's emotions in their own way, preventing him from seeking other women. In this context, the tóng fáng yatou could both maintain family harmony and keep the husband, effectively ensuring that the good water doesn't flow to outsiders. Although this practice may seem strange, it undoubtedly helped alleviate family conflicts to some extent and prevented the husband from seeking other women. It is worth mentioning that, since the concubine maid's position is so unique, does this mean that they could potentially replace the wife and become the husband's official spouse? There are indeed historical examples of tóng fáng yatou who eventually replaced the wife. But such cases are relatively rare, and often occurred under specific circumstances. Generally speaking, it was not easy for tóng fáng yatou to move up the ranks and replace the wife's position. This is because, in ancient Chinese society, there was a strong emphasis on social status and hierarchy, and marriage was seen as a union between families, often arranged through parental approval, matchmakers, and formal ceremonies. The wife was usually a lady of noble birth or a young woman with a respectable reputation, who was a socially acceptable marriage partner. And her marriage to the husband followed formal procedures, ensuring her stable position. In contrast, tóng fáng yatou had not gone through these formal marriage procedures. They were not noble women, and they had not received official matchmaking approval, so even if they were favored, it was difficult for them to break through this social constraint and become the husband's legitimate wife. Furthermore, even if a tóng fáng yatou gained the husband's favor, she could only serve as a substitute in the delicate relationship between the husband and wife. No matter how high her status, she remained below the wife. Although the concubine maid might be promoted to a secondary wife, enjoying better treatment and status, from the perspective of strict social hierarchy, she would always be inferior to the wife. This meant that even if the tóng fáng yatou gained favor, the wife could still hold decision-making power within the family. If the wife became dissatisfied, the tóng fáng yatou, even if promoted to a secondary wife, could be punished at any time or even sold, with the husband powerless to intervene. According to related historians, many people, upon seeing the fate of concubine maids, may feel deeply emotional. Some might even think that men in the past were too fortunate. Not only did they marry one wife, but they could also get more for less, even having a considerate concubine maid by their side, leading quite a comfortable life. Indeed, on the surface, it may seem that men had a colorful life, but behind all this happiness was the profound sorrow of women. In ancient society, women's destinies were mostly controlled by men. Whether they were noble wives or common maids, they were at the bottom of the social hierarchy from birth. Although some women may have married well, becoming the wife of a wealthy household, they were still bound by strict social norms and a patriarchal system. This is the History and Culture channel. Liking and subscribing are the greatest help and support to us. Thank you everyone and see you in the next time.